Okay, so Saturday evening, the end of a miserable day. It's 115 up at my kuti. So I think one of the when things are extreme like this, is one of the surefire ways of say practicing with it is to there's not many ways that you can dance around the discomfort, but to one of the things that is always available to us is just contemplating impermanence. It seems so, say, simple or basic, but it it really does work. I mean, this is the reality is that days like this have to be impermanent. It's just on a I mean, it is starting to cool off a little bit now, but tomorrow morning it will be a little bit cooler. There'll be some relief. And then over time, it's going to shift and change, and there'll be, like this year, actually we had probably one of the coolest springs and early summers up until this big heat wave. So it's, impermanence is contemplating impermanence, change, uncertainty, and being willing to turn attention to that, and then then you don't, because if you just focus in on the particular phenomena or the feeling of it, then it feels overwhelming, and that's the way it works with everything, whether it's a physical feeling or mental feelings, emotions, memories, perceptions, thoughts, and emotion. They feel so solid and absolutely real that the assumption is they're not going to change, but that's not the way it is at all. And Buddha gave a beautiful, of course he gave many beautiful similes and images, but one that comes to mind, and just with impermanence, as he said, just as a skilled farmer with a great plow is able to cut through all the kind of roots and weeds and rootlets in the ground to plow the ground, preparing it for planting. So too, the contemplation of impermanence cuts through our defilements, cuts through our assuming a sense of I am within phenomena, and so that to be able to return to this fundamental contemplation, fundamental base of practice, and just remind ourselves of the impermanent, changing nature of everything, and including the weather. And of course, with anything else, I remember one time asking Ajahn Chah, because he had quite famously had struggled with sexual lust, and there was one particular period when it was very strong and really haunted him. And of course, it was never clear what he actually did to free his mind from that particular defilement, that conditioning of mind. And so I asked him, what practice did you use, and what was it that really made the difference, that allowed the mind to be free from sensual and sexual lust? And he just laughed and said, "Oh, it wasn't anything fancy. I just kept contemplating, this has to be impermanent." And he said, and it was. So I think that whether it's external phenomena, internal phenomena, whether it's material or mental, emotional, this truth of impermanence is an essential feature or quality that we just have to keep returning to in order to have a sense of freedom within the experience, because sometimes things can be just completely pleasant and delightful, and that's impermanent as well, and things can be quite difficult as it is in these days of this heat, and it's impermanent. Just to be able to be contemplating, so that the mind doesn't end up getting entangled and attached and running stories of, oh, woe is me. It's just this. It's another impermanent phenomena that can be observed and investigated and recognized. It's arising and it's ceasing. In terms of sustaining contemplations and investigations, I think we need to be shoring up the mind in different ways to have a resilience and consistency to it, a steadiness. That's just because we think, oh yeah, the Buddha said to contemplate impermanence, so yeah, that's a good idea, and then do it from time to time. There needs to be something that helps the mind to be more steady and resilient, and in applying. And of course, the Buddha gave many, many different practices, but one of the things that's been coming to my mind these last days is a set of qualities that the Buddha praised for using in conjunction with the different practices of cultivation of the Eightfold Path, the development of the 7 factors of awakening, the relinquishing of the 5 hindrances. And that set of qualities is, to me, it's really an important base for developing this, that sense of kind of a right attitude to practice. And in the Buddhist, and there's 4 qualities: seclusion, dispassion, cessation, relinquishment. In the Pali, viveka, viraka, nirodha, vosaka. And those are a set of teachings, set of qualities that I think are worth bringing up to remind ourselves how to develop all these different practices and to give a sense of resilience and sustained quality to our practice. So this sense of viveka, of solitude or seclusion. Of course, there's the physical seclusion of, say, being here in a forest monastery, but that physical seclusion can be, we can develop that in many different ways. Whether it's just keeping a distance from people from time to time, or setting up routines and schedules so one has some time to oneself. Those are really helpful supports for practice, and so that having just the time and the space to develop our cultivation is really important, and then having supportive conditions, say like the monastery. For those of us who are resident, it's what is ordinary, but then the place is available for people to come to either stay and practice or to come and visit for shorter periods and on a day basis. It's creating a space that gives some framework of seclusion or solitude, a natural setting. So and each person has to figure out for themselves what's useful, what works, and what's helpful. But finding ways to develop a sense of seclusion, as I say, on a physical basis, but then also on a emotional, mental basis as well. How to step back from the moods of the mind that entangle us in the world and entangle us in our kind of incessant obsession with ourselves. And the story, the ongoing story of me. And so that, a seclusion from, so we were at tea time the other day, seclusion from social media. That's not a small thing. But then also just as as we chanted this evening in the teaching on the Eightfold Path, for samadhi, the cultivation of the stillness of mind, composure of mind, there is a viviche vagamehi, vivicha akusalehi dhamehi, secluded from sensuality, secluded from unwholesome states. That is a seclusion, pulling kind of a separation or a distancing oneself from the pursuit of that sensual gratification. The reality is our senses are in contact with things that are both pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral all the time. But then generally there is a certain priority of value. This is, the pleasant is much more pleasant. It's just natural. And so one seeks after it. But to step back, and there's a place of coolness that the heart feels, and when one's not chasing after gratifications, it's stimulation toward the pleasant. And then the actual feeling is one of peace and clarity, and then it's interesting because then everything starts to become a bit more pleasant. It's just this is a natural effect. But that stepping back from the chasing after things. And then the rest of the 5 hindrances get folded under the umbrella of the unwholesome states. So ill will, aversion, irritation, sloth and torpor, this kind of and dullness, spacing out, and then restlessness, worry, doubt, vacillation of mind. Those are they're quite ordinary mental habits, but they are unwholesome. They are unskillful. In a sense, when they say unwholesome, it's they don't conduce to bright, clear states of mind. And so that the Buddha is saying it is possible for us to turn our attention to that which is bright, is peaceful, is steady and composed, and dwell in that, regardless of whatever's happening. And that's so this sense of relying on the seclusion, separation, viveka, or a sense of solitude, having an inner contentment that one is directing attention toward. Can I just be content with this moment as it is? Do I have to be reacting out of aversion or fascination? Then the heart becomes more independent. Because the next quality of viraga is both a dispassion but also a fading away. Because sometimes the quality of there's this sense of the cooling of the heart is incredibly delightful, and to turn attention to that. So this it's not a kind of a stamping out of any kind of preference or enjoyment of things, but it's a willingness to let things fade away, kind of the fascination that one has for the world and the kind of the thing of the world, which is both our own, again, it's like physical objects around, but then also our own sense of self, sense of me, the chasing after of or worrying that we if we're criticized or blamed in some way. I mean that is a chasing after the world, or not receiving recognition for something. There is a passion for being somebody, something, and we chase after it. So letting that fade away, and there's just tremendous spaciousness is possible. So that enjoying the cooling of the various passions that we have, which needs to be sort of recognized, that when with the one of the, because then it's because somebody says, oh, it's like you're trying to just damp down any kind of interest in anything, and that's not the case. One of the factors or qualities that the Buddha points to as a base for success in spiritual aspiration is chanda, which is like interest, motivation, desire. So it's an interesting, you sort of have to see the context of things, but it's that kind of obsession or chasing after things that there's a viraka, this fading away of passion, fading away of obsession, that allows the heart to be still and to be steady and clear, so that we wake a viraka, nirodha, this sense of cessation, allowing things to cease. Because sometimes even our bad habits, there's this almost a kind of feeling of loss. What am I without my habits? And we're not willing to let them cease. It's like we know sort of thoughts and moods torment us, and then you try to just pay attention to the breath coming in, going out. Okay, that feels good, but just let me think a little bit more. Just let me proliferate on this a little bit more. And what about this? I need to worry about this. So I mean, it's letting it cease and not being afraid of stillness, afraid of clarity of heart. It's just so deeply ingrained. So that paying attention to cessation, and you can do it in little ways. Just listening to the end, listening or feeling, observing the end of a thought, the end of a mood, and where there was this thought or mood of there is this experience, and just watching that commentary come to an end, and not just being peaceful and clear with its ending, and watch the space open up. We'll fill it pretty quick, but just starting to get used to allowing that space to grow and establish itself. And so the opportunity for exploring the quality of cessation, and it's those little windows into something like cessation that opens up the big possibility of relinquishment, of letting go. The last quality, vosaka, is relinquishment, not letting go, or release. And it's something that just that willingness to let. And again, it's not that we have to annihilate anything. I've got to annihilate my bad habits. I've got to annihilate my bad thoughts and moods. It's like letting go, releasing, having that willingness to not cling to things we identify with. They're one of the great examples of that comes to my mind right now is just Ajahn Chah, and one of the character traits that he had strong moods and strong emotions, and he could be quite fiery, so that and when he got angry, and when he talks about the last sort of remnants of his anger or ill will, is that he had he's already, say, the abbot and teaching at Wat Pah Pong, and he noticed a novice at the dining hall standing up, which is really bad manners for a monast, standing up, picking up a kettle and drinking right out of the kettle. And Ajahn Chah had completely lost it, and he just started to briskly move towards the novice. And the novice noticed, and he bolted and ran off into the forest. And Ajahn Chah chased after him. He was probably, in his mind, he was going to probably thrash him. And then he caught himself and realized what he was doing, and he was so mortified by that. He went back into his dwelling place and didn't, I can't remember how long it was, like it was at least 3 days, might have been longer. Didn't come out, period, didn't come out for any meals or anything, and didn't join the community. And then when he came out again and rejoined the community, then the monks never saw him display that same kind of fiery quality, that same kind of ill will or anger or ferociousness. It could be displayed in other ways. And there was a time when an astrologer, palm reader, asked to, he'd been sitting there trying to get a glimpse of Ajahn Chah's hands, trying to edge up closer and trying to see. But finally he screwed up his courage and asked if he could look at the lines in Ajahn Chah's hands, because he was so fascinated by his personality, his character. And then Ajahn Chah, okay, yeah, go for it. He came up and he started looking at the hands, and he's looking up at Ajahn Chah, looking back down. He said, "Little Paul, by the lines in your hands, you have a lot of anger." And Ajahn Chah's response was, "Yes, but I don't use it." And so it's not as if personality is not there. It's not as if characters are not, but yes, there's the recognition. Do I really want to use this? Can I release it? Can I let it go? Can I relinquish it? And the things that we consider as a part of our character and personality, it's just so enmeshed in mine. This is me, this is mine, this is who I am. And we don't let it go. And so we cycle around samsara again, being reborn into our habits and personality traits. And so that it can be let go of. And so that the relying on these qualities, developing these qualities, paying attention to these qualities as we cultivate the path of sila, samadhi, panya, as we cultivate the Eightfold Path, as we cultivate the factors of awakening, this viveka, viraka, nirodha, vosaka, the seclusion, solitude, dispassion, cessation, relinquishment. These are really important qualities to attend to. So I'll offer that for reflection this evening.